In our last module, Module 4, we're going to be looking at how you actually implement vision and look at how you take your first steps as a school leader. In the last module, we're going to look at what's important as you begin your leadership. You are about to begin your capstone experience and complete an internship. I've given a lot of thought to what is the most important thing to offer you before you make this big step. And I've decided that the most pressing issue you will face is student achievement and how to improve it. There are both state and national pressures on you to make a difference in the learning of the children under your care. There's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, and it comes at the very worst time in your development as a leader. Unfortunately, there isn't anything we can do about that, so let's make the best of it. In the McCrell study, I believe there's the information that you need on how to address student achievement. So let's look at this strategy in the next few slides. The authors of Balanced Leadership Study offer these facts about the landscape of school leadership today. First, you're going to face higher expectations than ever. The explosion of information in the media has presented the public with the ability to shop when it comes to their child's education. Schools are now competing in a global marketplace. When you have some free time, you need to read the book, The World is Flat. U.S. schools must change in ways never before imagined to compete with the changing world. Second, principals now face intense scrutiny and accountability. Policymakers at both the state and national levels are convinced that schools are to blame for the failure of the U.S. workforce. Right or wrong, school leaders must respond in a positive way. Strong leaders will embrace the accountability and welcome it. Strong leaders will make what happens in their schools as transparent as possible. Third, leaders face the reality of the exponential growth of new knowledge and information around the world. A static curriculum will no longer work in this reality. Principals must learn what 21st century learners will need. Project-based learning is a great example of how principals can cope with this explosion of information. The Buck Institute offers some wonderful help in PBL, problem-based learning. You can view their website by just using Buck Institute PBL as your search words. Another good example is the New Tech High School model. Again, you will find all about that model by using New Tech High Schools as the search phrase. The last pressure comes from the increase in workload of principals. Data mining has produced a huge mountain of information for principals and staffs to sort through and make sense of the information found in those data. Many talented leaders are leaving the field because they simply can't balance the job demands and their personal and family needs. A few districts are beginning to address this issue by delegating the principal's usual duties to assistants. There's still much to be done in this area. In addition to the changes in the role of the principal, there are also new expectations. First, there's the challenge of leading a school community through a complex change process. We've discussed first and second order change briefly in Module 2, but it's more and more common for principals to have no other choice but second order change. First order change just happens without much leadership, but second order change is another matter altogether. Singay and Marzano both write about the need for complete change with regard to school systems and to cultures. Such drastic change takes a toll on staffs that are already burdened with increased workloads. It will take some strong and courageous leaders to lead staffs through the needed changes. Effective leaders will need to find a way to make change seem easier and not harder. The second expectation is the constant and relentless emphasis on student achievement. Veteran school leaders remember the good old days when student achievement was just a minor issue in the big picture of what school meant. The next generation of school leaders will be more like surgeons and CEOs than the old paradigm of the genial school principal of old. Strong leaders will learn that focusing on improved learning is the first and foremost job of the principal, but that allowing children to enjoy learning is also still very possible. The project-based learning model is the best one to exemplify this principle. Children can still be creative and joyfully explore problem solving while increasing their learning. The last new expectation is distributive leadership. This is a new twist on the old idea of delegation. Distributive leadership involves allowing the staff to take responsibility of school functions that match their talents. It doesn't mean that the principal just sits back and smiles when everyone else is working. Distributive leadership includes the principal's talents and sharing of the workloads. What then can new principals do to make the adjustments needed to all of these demands? The best study to address this was reported by the McCrell Institute in 2002. They examined hundreds of schools and identified the 21 behaviors most closely aligned with improving student achievement. Let's take a look at these behaviors. In slide 6 of Module 4, let's take a look at all the 21 behaviors described in the McCrell study. You can see that these are behaviors not always associated with principal behaviors in the past. The most powerful of the 21 are the ones highlighted on the right. Knowledge of curriculum, instruction, and assessment is the one that leads the list. The book Good to Great suggests that principals who make the biggest difference in student achievement are often not necessarily very strong in people skills, but they are relentless in the pursuit of improved student learning. They spend most of their time monitoring and evaluating student performance. They work to optimize every opportunity toward that goal by finding resources and time for staff to reach the goal. Finally, they have a keen sense of what is actually happening in the school. Their situational awareness allows them to address problems before they become overwhelming. In slide 7, we note that Robert Marzano wrote in 1995 that changes are in two categories: first and second order change. He explains that first order change is the kind of thing that we see most often in schools. Maybe a change in the schedule, a change of textbook, a change in technology. These changes are often challenging to existing staffs, but they're usually easily accomplished without too much pain. Second order change, however, is seen by Marzano as causing a complete overhaul of the school, including its curriculum, its culture, and its vision. The second order changes are often painful and fraught with anxiety. Staff often undergo the same stages of emotions that you would see in someone who's experiencing grief and loss. In slide 8, we see the differences in perception by staffs when confronted with first and second order change. Work with a partner and discuss these perceptions. Think of a change your school experienced. How did the staff perceive this change? In slide 9, we see the examples of how people feel when confronted with second order change. I'm sure we can all relate to this comment. In slide 11, Rick DeFore and others have written recently about the importance of building learning communities in schools. Goddard and others have also written about the importance of collective efficacy. I think you all know when that has happened in a school and how rare that is when it's happening. Let's look at the characteristics of effective learning communities. Consider the 4 listed in this slide. Work with a partner and think of examples of what these 4 would look like in a school, and post your findings on the class site. I'm just asking these questions for you to think about it. How did you compare to the elements listed on this slide? How were your ideas different or similar?